This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So any questions, guys, from yesterday's class? Anyone, any questions? Anyone, any questions that I can take? Again, just a recap of things around. We were starting with something called tenant. We were telling that whenever you create an Azure account, the first thing that you get is something known as a tenant. And then you went ahead and created something known as a subscription. So this is what I require to play around with Azure. The first thing that I need is something known as a tenant. This is something that gets created automatically, and I will have a tenant ID associated with myself. And then I have something known as a subscription, which I need to go ahead and create a subscription with Azure. You can have one subscription, you can have multiple subscriptions, you can do a multi subscriber model as well. And this will have its own ID called as a subscription ID. It's a sub ID. And also, not only these two, I will also need something called as a proper role in order to go ahead and, let's say, deal with the resources of Azure. This is what I now need. This is the third thing that I'm now introducing, is that you need a tenant, you need a subscription, and then you need to have a proper RBAC, role based access control. And what were the three broad roles that we were looking at yesterday, guys? What were the three broad roles? Owner, contributor, and a reader.
Owner, contributor, reader.
So can a contributor go ahead and, let's say, create resources in Azure portal? No, no, create resources, not users.
No.
Contributor can do everything what an owner can do apart from creating or deleting or, let's say, managing users. Resources, still yes, contributor can still go ahead and create resources and all these things out. And yesterday we were looking at how do you invite a user. That I said, okay, fine, there's a user called rbac@gmail.com. I went ahead and invited him. But let's say you don't want to invite a user. Organizations wouldn't like to invite a user, they'd like to create a user. So how do you create a user? Let's see that also. Again, all the user management is done at the AD level only, at the Azure Active Directory level only. I'll go here and I'll say users, and this time around I can just go and delete this particular user. I don't need him really. So I'll just click on this and I'll say delete users out here. And by default, all the users that you delete will be maintained for 30 days. Like after I do a refresh, that RBAC should also come up here. So yesterday I deleted two users out here. They come up here. It'll be for 30 days before the permanent deletion can actually happen. So if you look at this, I deleted yesterday. It's telling permanent deletion date is what? 9/15, 1 month from, let's say, today. So let's go here, and now I'll say new user. And instead of inviting a user, I will create a user right now. Let's say the user name is something called demo user, or let's say this is user 10 or user 2. And this user is now having what? User 2 at the rate what? This particular domain. Meaning this is my own domain right now. So this user have to log in with this particular ID, user 2 at the rate something dot on microsoft.com. This is the domain what the user is logging in. So I'm not letting users to log in with, let's say, user 2 at the rate gmail.com. No, I'm not doing that, because Gmail is something that I don't have a control on. That's a domain that I don't have a control on. This is a domain what I have a control on right now. So I'm saying user 2. I'll say he's a developer, and again, first name, last name, all is something that is optional. And I'm saying let me create a password, and I'll give the user a temporary password for now. I'll say some password here, and I will say create. So instead of now, let's say, going ahead and inviting a user, I'm creating a user. So let's go here, and this is the first thing that you'll receive from your organization, telling that this is your user ID and you have a temporary password. Please go ahead and take that out. You can change that password later. So I'll copy this ID out here. Okay, go into, let's say, an incognito window, and let's say portal.azure.com. So I am the user, I am the developer. I'm now trying to log into Azure, and now the email ID that I use is this, user 2 at the rate something like this. I'll go ahead and say next. It's now going to ask me what is my password. The organization would have sent you a temporary password for the first time. So I'll say it is Microsoft something like this, and now it's telling update your password. Azure will now know that this is a temporary password that I have created for the user. I should not know the password as an administrator. Even as an administrator, I should not know a password. That's not right, right? So it's telling change your password. So I'll just go ahead, change this out, and now sign into it. So this is the first thing that you do when you kind of log into Azure. I'll just skip for now. And yes, I want to sign in. I want to stay in. And now I am into this particular directory with a different ID. Into the same directory with a different ID with a name called developer2. The question again, will I be able to see the subscriptions? Yes, no, maybe. Unless and until I don't do a role assignment, I won't see any subscriptions out here. So in order for this user to see the subscriptions, I'll again have to come back as an administrator. I'll have to assign this user, or I have to give this user a proper role out here. So coming here, coming here into yeah, into access control or IAM, identity and access management. I'm going here. I'm saying add a user, add a role assignment again. Say a contributor or someone, say next, say add members, and this is what developer to say select review and assign. So the role assignment is the same. Like even if I invite a user, even if I add a user, create a user, role assignment is the same. I can go ahead and let's say do a role and all these things out. So and now this is done, and this user will take somewhere around 2 or 3 minutes to get this reflected. So this user sometimes has to also log out and log in back again to look at the subscriptions. Now you see the subscriptions are not getting reflected. Sometimes it takes some time to kind of give you the subscription out here, and now I have this particular subscription with a specified access. So I am a contributor, so I can only do what a contributor can do, which is adding resources and all these things out. But this user cannot go ahead and add users again. So this is how you create a user. Yesterday we were looking at how to invite a user. Now I'm talking about how to create a user in the Azure Active Directory. How do you assign the roles and all these things. So any questions here, guys? And guys, in the last, are you able to hear my voice? Is it clear? Yes. Okay. So any questions here, guys?
Yes.
Anyone? Any questions here? Please go ahead. Okay. 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 Correct. Storage which will not have any cost. So the cost is not there. So the question here is that if I delete a user, say if I delete multiple users out here, that user data will still be active for the next 30 days so that I can go ahead and restore it out. Will it be a cost? No. You're already paying for it. You're already paying for all the costs within your Azure Active Directory and etc. And by default, I'm getting something called Azure AD free. I can use this Azure AD free, not a problem. Okay. But you also have licensing for Azure Active Directory. That's a different story altogether. Okay. Any more questions here, guys? Anyone? Any more questions here? Yes. Okay. You cannot recover it. You can't recover it. Like Microsoft is giving you a grace period of 30, but after that, no, in the sense like it's not about renewal. What he was asking is that after 30, like you cannot retrieve that user back again. Thank you. You cannot retrieve that user back again. So after 30, I mean, no matter what you do, the user will not come back. You'll have to again recreate him or resend the invite and etc. Okay, any more questions, guys? So this is where we are. So we are telling that you have a tenant, you have a subscription,
Sir,
and one.
sir, excuse
Yeah,
me, sir.
go ahead, please.
Sir, actually, I created an account yesterday in Azure portal, but it gives me only 14,500 credits.
Okay.
Points I'm telling, sir. As you
Yeah, I
said,
mean that
that
is.
it will give you
Mhm.
14,900. Instead of that, it gives
Again,
me 14,500.
uh, I mean I could be wrong. It could it the actual price could be something like 14,500 only. I could be wrong. So it's somewhere between 14,500 or 14,900. I don't remember the exact number. But if Azure is giving you 14,500, maybe that's the credit points that they kind of give you allocate to you for the entire month. Again, is that sufficient? More than sufficient. It's like more than sufficient. Even 1,000 credit points is enough for the entire practice as such. So don't have to worry about that.
Thank you, sir.
Guys, can everyone hear my voice? Is it clear?
Someone having issue.
Yes, sir.
Check chat box.
You guys who are not able to hear my voice, can you please go ahead and let's say rejoin the session, because a lot of people are able to hear it. I think there is some issue at your end. So can you please go ahead and try to let's say rejoin the session? Let's see if you're able to let's say hear my voice out there. Okay, any questions guys still here? Anyone, any questions here? Anyone, any questions still here? Again, yes, that's right. So you are telling yes, this is my personal domain. This is my account. Company will have it in a different way. So companies will go here and you have something called custom domain names, right? They can go ahead and add a domain name. They can go ahead add a domain name for which you need to buy a domain. You need to buy a domain from a let's say domain seller like GoDaddy or Bluehost. There are a lot of people that are available out there. It based on company to company. So they'll add a domain here and they'll create a user based on that domain. So that's how. No, this is a domain which Azure gave me. I did not purchase it. This is on Microsoft.com. If you are a company, you will have something like Microsoft.com or Accenture.com. Yes. So any more questions, guys, here? And I hope everyone is okay with the audio right now.
I have a
Yes.
question here.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, this is our practice scenario. For example, if I have taken a subscription and I have
Okay.
added one of my friend as a, I have invited, okay, to
Okay.
use the current subscription. So
Okay.
after 1 month of our trial expires, right? Can
hmm
that person be able to subscribe for Azure as a new subscriber, or it will says
Yes.
that you are already
No, no. He will be able to subscribe to Azure as a new subscriber. Meaning Azure is not going to, let's say, treat another user, let's say that way. That
Mhm.
person will be able to use Azure, meaning that person will be able to create his own subscription, not a problem.
Okay, and they can add me. That person can add me.
They can add you.
Invite.
Yes, they can add you
Yeah.
again. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So they
You
can add
answered my
you.
question.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah.
Again, one user can be a part of multiple tenants at the same time. So I am a part of multiple tenants here because this is one of the
Okay.
tenant I am part of, and I have one more tenant out here. So I can be a part of multiple tenants at the same time. Not a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. So same time multiple domains. Yes, you can manage same time multiple domains. You can add multiple domains in the same tenant. Not a problem. Yes. Any more questions here,
As,
guys? Hmm?
as a user, how can we check that which are all the tenant IDs we have been connected?
As a user, how do you check which are all the tenant IDs you're connected? Good question. Is that here you have something called directory. I am a part of a directory. I'll go and switch a directory. I have two different directories allocated to me. One is the current directory that I'm working on. The other is my own account that I'm working on. So I can switch them. That's a tenant. That's a different tenant altogether. So it
Okay.
depends upon what is a directory, what is a subscription, and etc. So you can switch your
Okay.
directories out here from this one. So this is how a user will be able to let's say manage the tenants he's a part of. So using one account, you can manage multiple tenants at one go. Not a problem.
Okay.
Does it answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, now, so I have all the things that I do. So I have the proper tenant ID. I have a proper subscription ID. I have a proper role. I'm the owner of this particular subscription. I can now go ahead and I can create resources and all these things out. Now here's what. Before I go ahead and create a resource, so let's say I want to create a resource which holds data. Let's say some resource which wherein I can store a data out here. Before I go ahead and create a resource, I need to create something called as a resource group. What do you mean by a resource group out here? Is that let's come here. Let's take that diagram out here and place it out here. This is a diagrammatical representation of a resource group in Azure. What do you mean by a resource group? Just, I'm sorry. Yeah, sure. Uh, no, not a team. Not really a team. Is it okay now? Is the voice okay now? Okay. Not really a team out here. Just let's draw this same example. Let's say to your desktop that you're using. Okay. In your desktop, tenant ID is nothing but your operating system. If you want to use the system, you need, let's say, the operating system out here. So you switch on, you say welcome screen and all these things out. The subscription is like you have an admin account whenever you log in. So here is what you have. You have the operating system, you have the account, you are inside your system right now. Can you just store the data right now, or do you need something else? Drives, exactly. You need drives. So why do you require drives? Because you can say one drive is for movies, one drive is for, let's say, folders and etc. In the same way, resource group is like the drive on the cloud wherein you can store resources. So it's like a space. So do you do anything with the drive? You go to the drive and just store your files out there. In the same way, resource group will give you a space on the cloud to go ahead and store it out. So how do you create one? What is that you need? What is that you need? Again, you need at least a contributor role to create a resource group. You cannot do a reader and cannot create something. So you cannot do that. So let's come here. And from a previous session, I have a couple of resource groups. But when you click here, so I'm in the home. Sorry, I'm sorry. It's muscle memory. So I just went in there. Again, how do you do that? Is either come here, say RES resource groups. You get something called resource groups out here, or just click here in the three buttons. Resource group is the resource out here, or you can just see it here on your home page, which is called resource groups. I'm clicking here and I'm getting inside the resource groups out here. Now the issue is that you'll have to slow me down a little bit because I have multiple classes that are going on, and each and every class is, let's say, on a different pace. So I'll need to, let's say, come down a little bit. Fine. So this is now a resource group, and I need to add a resource group. In your case, you won't have anything here. It'll say it's empty, go ahead, create a new resource group and etc. I'll say create out here. I'll say I have a create button. I'll say create out. And I'm just creating a logical namespace to hold my resources. I'm not doing anything. I'm just creating a logical name so that my resources can be held. And it's asking me what is the subscription you want to create a resource group under. Again, under one tenant, you can have multiple subscriptions, right? That's the reason you have a drop down here. You can select any subscription that you have a proper access to, and then you can go ahead and create a resource group under it. So I'm now telling this is the only subscription that I have under this tenant. In your case, it will be free trial. So I'm now telling this is the subscription that I have. It's Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. It's asking, can you give a name to your resource group? I'll say, okay, fine. The name is something like first RG resource group. So I'm doing a first -RG out here. And it's now asking me, what is the region you want to create this resource group under? Guys, very importantly, this is a cloud, right? So you're renting out resources. You're renting out resources from a data center in the background. Azure is asking, you know what, I have somewhere around 57 data centers in the world. Which data center of the world do you want to create this resource group under? I'll tell, okay, fine, whatever it is, I'll just take a location out here, East US 2. We'll also talk about what is the significance of a location, how do you select a location, what is the criteria you need to select a location, and etc. For now, I'm just doing a location called East US 2. And say next, it's saying tags. There's one more option here to add tags to my resource group. What do you mean by tags out here? Where did you hear this terminology called tags? Everywhere. Like, let's say you go to shopping, you have a tag, price tag for everything. Why do you need a tag? Because you can identify what is the price of a product. In the same way, I have multiple teams using Azure. Let's say I have a company called Tata Motors. There's a HR department, there's a development department, there's a QA, there's a DevOps. Who am I creating this resource group for? How do I know? Is that I can give some name value pair tags out here, telling that the owner is a developer. And I can add one more tag telling that the email address or email ID is something like developer@gmail.com or something like this. So just in case if I need some information about this particular resource group, I can go into this resource group, contact this particular person. Let's say I'm an auditor, I'm a reader to your subscription. I would like to understand why the cost is more in this particular resource group. So whom do I contact to? Using this particular tag, I can go ahead, contact you, telling that, you're a developer, you're the owner here, can you tell me what is this, why is this resource even created? So this will help you establish some order, meaning wherein you can go ahead and say which resource group belongs to which team. So now I'm telling this team is a development, let's say this is development, and I'll do a review and create. Now it will give you an invoice telling that what are you creating. So it's telling the subscription that you're creating is in Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. The resource group that you're creating is called first RG, and there is a tag called development and the owner called something like this. I'll say create. This is the first resource group that I created. I'll go ahead and create one more resource group called second RG for a team called QA, testing team. So I'll go ahead again, I'll say this is a second RG out here. Let's collapse this. I'll say this is East US 2 again. I'll say tags. Now I'll say the owner is testing or testing team out here. I'll say review and create this out. So what happens when you have a tag is that now you will have not one but thousands of resource groups out here. When you go into a work in an organization, you won't have one but multiple, let's say multiple resource groups out here. Now I want to identify all the resource groups that belong to a development team. How do I do it? Is by using a tag. So for now, here I have subscription all, location all. You can say add a filter, and in the filter I can go ahead and say tags owner, and I can say owner is equal to what? Development testing. I can say whatever resource groups that belong to development, please show that, apply. It will only show me what is the resource group that a developer kind of owns. So tags are for this particular purpose. You can filter according to what the tag is, and you can get what are all the resource group a team owns. So for me, as a reader, or let's say as an administrator of your subscription, it'll become very easy on my life to understand that the first RG belongs to a development team out here. Now I have created multiple resource groups out here. I did not really explain what is the significance of a location. We'll talk about what is the significance of a location. Why do you choose a location? What are the factors you choose a location and all these things out. But here's my point. I have a user called developer. This is a developer, or this is the user too, which is a developer too. Now the thing here is that this developer only needs to have access over the first RG, because first RG belongs to the development team. Second RG maybe belongs to the testing team. This developer has no business in going again and changing something in the testing team out here. Now, if this developer goes and clicks on the resource groups, what do you think he'll be able to see? What do you think this developer will be able to see? This is the question. So I have a developer. I added that particular developer here at the subscription level, and I have given him a contributor access. This is what I have given him. My question is that now let's take out the filter. Yes, these are all the resource groups that I have in my Azure portal. It's called availability RG. Then I have first RG, second RG, and there's something called network watcher RG and all these things. So multiple resource groups is something that I created. The question I have right now is that this developer has a role called contributor at a level called the subscription level out here. Now, what do you think will be, will he be able to see? Will he be able to see all the resource groups or only selective resource groups? All the resource groups,
All the resources.
It's
role
all the
assignment. So RBSC will look at that. So let's come here. Let's go as this particular developer. Let's go here into the resource groups, seeing everything. So the concept here is called as an inheritance, meaning the role that is assigned on the subscription level is inherited at the child level also, because a resource group is a child object under the subscription. So whatever resource groups that are there under this particular subscriptions, the user will be able to, or the developer will be able to see all these things, because he has a role as a contributor at a resource group level. Meaning if I go here as a developer, let's go here into the developer. There is also called IAM at the resource group level. There's also called IAM. So let's go under this IAM and let's see role assignments, or come here, I say view my access. It's telling contributor subscription inherited. When you inherited this particular contributor permission from a subscription level, so you are just a contributor out here. I don't like this because this guy should only have access to the first RG, not everything. So I'll again go back into my, let's say, subscription as an owner. I'll first delete the role assignment. I'll take out the role assignment completely from the subscription level, because if the role assignment is at a subscription level, the user will be able to see all the resource groups irrespective of me telling. I don't have a control here. Let me come here. Let me say deny assignments, or let's say role assignments out here. And this is the developer too. And let's come here and let's see, remove this out. I'm removing the role. You're removing him as a contributor from the subscription. You're removing completely him on the subscription level. So I'm saying, yes, I want to remove this role assignment out here. And it's telling removing role assignment. It's removed, done. He won't even be as a reader. He won't even have access to anything right now. It's again come back to square one. He won't be able to see even the subscription. No, he won't even be able to see the subscription. That's the point that I want to make. Meaning if I go here, let's go to home, let's do a couple of refreshes. Again, it'll take some refreshes out here. I'm still able to see the subscription, but let me log out and log in back again. Let me check this ID, or let me do a couple of refreshes out here. Again, it'll take some time for this to get reflected. So let's wait for this one to happen. And let's see this. Yes, still able to see this. Again, it'll take around 5 or 6 minutes of time for the roles to get, let's say, reflected or updated out here. And sometimes the user should also go ahead and log out sometimes. So let me sign out and back again once again like this user. So let's go ahead, sign in again. Now let's see, no, don't sign in. Let's go back here. Still able to see the subscription. Will take some time to get updated. Again, it will take around 5 or 6 minutes of time for this one to get updated. So that's the reason he's still able to see the subscription. But let's go into the resource groups. Do you see this? At the subscription level, would you want to put him as a reader? We'll talk about that. But just give me a second. Right now, do you see it's telling that the access is denied and all these things? So the roles are getting impacted. The role assignment is getting impacted out here. And after a couple of refreshes, I won't even be able to see this particular subscription that is reflected under tenant. Till now, I'm still able to see the subscription. But after a couple of minutes, I won't even be able to see the subscription. So my point is that if you want to add a user onto the Azure portal as, let's say, a contributor only at the first RG level, don't add him at the subscription. Don't do it at the subscription level. Go directly to the resource group and then go ahead and add him here as a contributor. Meaning role assignment can be done even at the child resources level. So if he's a contributor at this particular, let's say, resource group level, so let's go ahead and do a contributor out here. I'll say select members and I'll select this particular member called developer 2 and I'll say review and assign this out. And I am now I'm now assigning a developer as a contributor at an individual resource group level only. Only the first RG. He won't even be able to see your availability RG or second RG. No, he won't even be able to see it because this user is not added directly at your subscription level. The user is added at a resource group level. So I'm not adding the user here. Rather, I've just deleted this user here and I've re-added him here. He will be able to see the subscription. He'll be a reader for the subscription because in order for this user to access this particular resource group, he needs to see the subscription exactly, and he will be able to see only that particular first RG.
If we have to provide him access to other resource group, how do we do that? Since we created the user under the particular resource group,
Correct. We did not create the user under the particular resource group. We created the user at the tenant. We created the user still there in a tenant, but the role
Okay, okay.
assignment was done
Role
only at
assignment.
one
Yeah.
particular.
Okay,
Role
understand.
assignment was done only at one particular tenant out here. Now
Okay,
the
so
thing is that
multiple
if
times we can do. Wherever the
multiple
resource
times you can
group
do
is.
that,
Yeah. Okay.
wherever
Fine.
you want him to have an access, meaning my organization. Let's see what is the user now looking at. Let's come back to the user here and let's do a hard refresh of my browser. Again, the browser cache comes into picture. A lot of things actually happen out here. So let's go here. Let's go to the resource groups. First RG. I'm not getting an error. I'm seeing only the first RG out here. No matter even if I type second RG and all these things, I won't be able to see it. Second hyphen RG, nothing. There is no resources, nothing will get reflected out here because this user doesn't have a role assignment out there. Now the point is that your organization is coming back and telling, yes, this user is good. He's having a first RG, let's say as a contributor, great. But this user also needs to have a read access over the other resource groups. Meaning all the resource groups read access. Only this resource group, he should be having something like a contributor access. So what do you do here? But if there are multiple RGs, if it's only second RG, yes, I'll go ahead create a reader role for the second RG. If there are 100 RGs, out of which only one RG needs a contributor, the 99 needs a reader. It'll be very difficult for me to go to each and every RG and then do a role assignment. Instead, what if I go ahead and add him as a reader onto the subscription and a contributor onto the first RG? If I do a reader there, he will inherit all the permissions. He'll also be a reader onto the first RG because the permission is inherited, but he also has a contributor access. Contributor takes a precedence in the first RG. So let's come back here. This is what I'm telling is that let's go here into the subscription layer and add a role exactly. And this time I'll do a role assignment as a reader. So go here, I'll say select members. I'll just scroll down developer to select this out. And now very carefully, I'm doing a role assignment on the subscription level. So the user is a reader here and he's a contributor here at the first RG. So what happens right now is that this reader role will be inherited to every resource group that is under this particular subscription. But for this particular resource group, the user will be both a reader and a contributor. So let's do that. Let's see that again. Will take some time for this particular thing to get reflected. So let's go back here into the portal. Let's try to refresh this out. Again, it's still loading from the cache. A lot of things kind of happen here. And yeah, still the first RG. Let's log out and log in back again. I'll just take this ID and I'll just go to another browser and kind of open there. So I'm doing the same thing from another browser. Let's say next. And giving the password out here, I'll say escape for now. I'll say no, don't sign in, not a problem. And let's see the resource groups out here. So this user is able to see everything. So if I come here into the availability RG, let's see identity and access management, say view my access. I am a reader inherited from the subscription. If I come down to the first RG, view my access, I am both a contributor for this resource. Look at the scope. It's not inherited. It is assigned to this particular resource. Reader is being inherited from the subscription level. So I am a reader, I'm a contributor. So now Azure goes ahead and does an addition of reader plus contributor and it gives you a role called contributor only. So this user can go ahead, do add resources, subtract resources. So let's go ahead. And in here, let's see this one. Let's expand the screen. So I am in the first availability RG out here. I'll just go ahead, add a resource. Okay. Like I'm not going into the actual resource, but I'm just adding something out here. So I'll just go ahead. Let's say I want to create a resource called, let's say a virtual machine out here. So let's say create this out. And as and when I try to create it, let's go ahead and say this is availability RG out here. As and when I try to create it, or let's see a better example. It's to web app. Okay. So I'm just creating something. I'm not going into it. I'm just creating something, and I'll say availability RG. Do you see what is the issue that I'm getting here? It's telling you cannot perform this action without the following permission, which is called write. So I don't have a following permission. I'm just a reader. But let me go into the first RG. Don't get that error, because I'm a contributor. I can add resources. So that is the difference what you have from a reader to a contributor. Meaning, as a contributor, you can go and add resources, delete resources. But as a reader, you won't be able to go ahead and do anything. You just be able to read everything here. So if I go into the resource group out here, and there are a couple of resources out there that is created, so I'm able to see everything. So we'll talk about what is the resources and etc. I'm able to see everything, but I won't be able to delete anything. I won't be able to go and delete something. So if I want to delete something, let's come here. Let's try a deletion operation as well. And yes, I want to delete. Error. Telling that what you do not have. It's telling what the client user with something does not have an authorization to perform this action. It will give you an error automatically out here. So this is how your accesses are going to change. And the main point here is that you can now control what a user can see, what a user can read, what a user can perform at an individual child level. Even that is possible. Each and every resource in Azure, whatever you create, has the identity and access management. So you can achieve something like, let's say, an access at a very minimal level also. Let's say you have a resource called virtual machine. You only want the user to have access to that. Yes, you can also go ahead and do an identity and access management on a resource as well. So it's very important to understand where we have an access, how do we have an access, and what can we do with that particular access. In all likely, the developer in your organization will also have something like this. For a testing RG, he shouldn't be able to go ahead and create anything. Great. Only for the first RG, which is assigned for the developers, that's where he can go ahead and let's say create things out. Because I can also tell the developer that anyone who's joined my organization, I can tell them that what, please only use the first RG over an email, which is not an effective way. That's the reason I control all these things using a role-based access control out here. Any questions here, guys? Is this confusing? Little bit. And guys, I hope in the back you're still able
Yes.
to hear my voice. Are you still able to hear my voice? A little bit louder. Okay. Mhm. Resource group. So the question here is that you have a resource group. You're creating a resource group. Let's say third RG. Guys, can you please focus here? The question here is that you have a third RG out here. Let's say I'm creating something called as a third RG. And the location out here. Is this something that you have to mandatorily give something like East Stone, etc.? The answer to this is that usually the location and all these things is something which is decided by the architecture. You have a team called Azure Architect. The architecture will decide what is the location you have to create a resource under. But what are the factors they consider? What exactly goes here? What is the thought process which goes here? Let's understand that. Let's come here. Let's say you are working for a client called irctc.co.in. Okay, this is the client for which you're working in. So I have an application called irctc.co.in, and the resources of this application, meaning the data of this application, is being held in a resource group in Azure. So I'm migrating all the data to Azure resource groups out here. So I have my Azure resource group. So I have all the data being stored out here. And you are an end user who wants to use this application called irctc.co.in. You give a request to this particular application over the internet saying irctc.co.in. This application in return will need to get some data from the Azure cloud. It will reach out to this particular resource group. I'll say, okay, fine, I'll go to the resource group, get all your data and project it on the portal called irctc.co.in so that you can book your tickets and all that stuff. Now, here's the catch. This user is coming from a region called India. Let's say you created a resource group in a location called East US2. So what will normally happen is that the user sending a request from this particular location called India to this application called irctc.co.in. This application will redirect the request to the resource group that is sitting in East US2. How will it redirect? It needs to take that request from actual physical cables that are laid down. It needs to go till East US2. It will need to get the data from East US2 and get your data back to you. This entire time period, what the application takes to respond is called a latency. We call this as a latency period, meaning the time you send a request till the time you get your actual response. This entire life cycle is called as a latency out here. My architecture should always be in such a way that the user and the business should be close to each other. Based on the client location, based on the request. Not only that, we'll also talk about it. Yes, so the first factor that I consider while creating a location out here is how close my business is to the user. So I'll say it is proximity. What is the distance between the user and my business? When I say it is business, it's nothing but your Azure resource group out here. It's nothing but the Azure resource group out here is what I'm talking about, my business out here. So the question is that, or the point here is that I cannot ask my user to come to US and then send a request for a better result, right? I need to get it close. So it's always suggested that your, let's say, resources are closer to the point of your, let's say, business. This is the first factor that I will consider while creating a resource group is the proximity to the business. How close are your resources to your business so that the latency window can be reduced and the user experience can be enhanced. Because all an application delivery is, let's say, concerned about is, let's say, the latency out here. This is one thing out here that I would really focus on. Second thing is, let's say, let's change this a little bit. Okay. Let's say I'm designing an application called irctc.co.in, but this application is not intended for India. It's intended for a location called Sudan, which is there in Africa. Okay, let's say people in Africa also need train, right? I mean, they also need to book tickets. So I'm telling the user is from Africa. I would like to go ahead and create this particular data center in a region called Sudan only. Data center is in Sudan. Now here is the issue is that though the primary customer is from Africa, I also have people from different world, tourists and all booking the tickets because they want to visit to this particular country, make a trip and all these things out. So this application is primarily intended to people in Africa, but also across the world. Now this region is politically very unstable. It has a lot of civil wars. It has a lot of wars that is going around there. Let's say there's a war that broke out. Your data center is shut down. If your data center is shut down, there is no way your application can retrieve your data back again from this particular data center. Now, I, as a user who's visiting your application from a region called America, I'm not concerned whether there's a war there. I'm not really concerned about all those things. All I need is your application to be running. Second factor that I really look into is the political stability of a region. Reason being, if you go for a resource group and if you say Africa, there's only one region in the entire, let's say, chain of Azure data centers, which is South Africa North. That's the only country in the entire region which is politically stable, which has some kind of a political stability, which is South Africa. And the data center is in Cape Town or Johannesburg. There are only one data center in the entire continent which has, let's say, somewhere around 57 countries out there. This is something even Azure considers that, data center stability out here. Fine. So I'll go ahead and say, you know what, I'll choose a stable region and let me choose a region which is, let's say, something like Japan. I choose that particular region out there for my data center. There's a tsunami which hit your data center. Your data center is not available because it's a tsunami. It's a natural disaster right now. There is no question that your data will be available right now. Third factor that I consider is geographical stability. How stable is this particular region? Over a period of history, let's say over a period of, let's say, 50 or 60 years, Azure will consider all these factors That how many tsunamis are there. If there's a tsunami or if there's a natural disaster, how quickly I can get my data center back again. Because from a business perspective, my application should be up and running all the time. So even your architecture will consider all these factors. So even though sometimes it might happen that your business is in India, but your data center is in East US. The reason being it offers all these things out here for you. That's the reason if you look at your data centers, mostly US, Europe. So if you look at Europe and all, have so many things out here. But if you look at let's say India, or if you look at let's say Africa or something like that, you do not really have a lot of data centers out here because we are primarily a service sector economy. Because we normally do servicing, let's say for let's say Europe and businesses are emerging, let's say in the US. The reason being any cloud provider, being GCP or AWS or any cloud provider, they have most of the data centers concentrated in Europe and US. That's how, or your architecture will also think in the same line. That what is the distance between? Is it only the distance? No, it is also the political and also the geographical stability what we think around before we go ahead and select a, let's say let's say a resource group as such. Yes, you have a question. You have a question. You have something to add. Coding and DevOps. You have scripting and DevOps. We'll get to that part also. We have scripting. We'll get to that part also out there. Mhm. Again, latency. The question here is that latency. Again, latency is a big subject. We have, let's say, different technologies to reduce the latency out here. So we'll talk about that also when we come to that. Let's say delivery, all the things out there. But any questions still here, guys?
Can a resource group can be in multiple regions?
Can a resource group be in multiple regions? No. You can only have a resource group in one region. You cannot create a resource group across different regions. Also, very importantly, if I create a resource group in a region called East US2, I cannot migrate it to a different region. It's only one time. If you want to migrate it, you will have to delete your entire resource group, recreate it in a different region. There is no migration allowed. No, I mean interlinking resources can be interlinked. We'll talk about resources. Resource groups cannot, because resource group at this point is still, let's say, just a folder. It doesn't have a lot of significance out here. It's just a folder which holds all your resources. So when we get to the actual resource from tomorrow, we will see what is an actual resource in Azure, how do you use that resource, what is the significance of that, and all those technicalities involved around that. Okay, any questions still here, guys? So today's session was mostly around role assignments, that how can you do role assignment on a child level, like go into a resource group and then assign some roles. How do you create a resource group? How do you go ahead and do a first resource group out here? How do you filter your resource groups using the tags? Going ahead, getting the tags and all these things. How do you do that? This was most of the topics that is kind of covered out here. Again, please go ahead, say resource group Azure. Please read this documentation on what exactly Azure is really talking about. What is a resource group? And if you look at this, a resource group is the container that holds related resources for an Azure solution. Nothing but a folder what we're talking about out here. So please look at this documentation. It will also tell you how do you create resource groups. So it's telling you this is how you go and create a resource group. This you select and then review and create the same thing what we have done, right? Also list resource groups. You can go ahead, let's say list all the resource groups and etc. The same thing what we were doing in, let's say, a diagrammatical way. Azure is going ahead and telling you all these things out here. So please visit this documentation, guys. This is very important to do. Please visit it. Please give it a read. Okay, any more questions here, guys? Anyone, any more questions here? Go ahead, please. Mhm. Correct. Again, when you say cloud, yes, it is. Your question is valid. That cloud itself is high availability. So not get my, let's say, data from another region. Yes, you can do that. Resource group is different. Resource group is just a placeholder But when we go into the actual resources that hold your data and etc., we'll talk about what do you mean by disaster recovery, redundancy, and all these things. So those are the concepts that get applied to a resource and not a resource group, because resource group is nothing but a virtual folder that exists on the cloud. It's just a, let's say, empty, let's say, folder which can hold all your resources. So we'll look into what are the resources that I'm talking about and etc., and we'll see the redundancy and all these things. Correct. That's a container which holds all the data, but that container as such doesn't really have a proper location where it is sitting in. So meaning it's just a space. It's not anything else. It's just a space. So there is no concept of it being unavailable. It's just a name. That's it. So it's just a name. So the concept of it being unavailable virtually doesn't exist. So that's the reason we do not have a disaster recovery and all for resource groups as such. Okay, and finally, I also showed you how to create a resource group. I would also need to show you how to delete one. Let's know if you create one, you also need to understand how to delete one. So go into the first resource group. If you want to delete something, you have this button called delete resource group out here. As in when you do a delete, it's telling warning delete resource group is irreversible. It's an irreversible procedure. You cannot recover back again. And now it's asking you to type in the name of the resource group. So let's go ahead, copy this name and do a paste here, and then go ahead delete this out. This is how you delete one. Again, deletion will take time. It will take around 1-2 minutes for the deletion to happen. And now it's telling deleting the resource group out here. So that's how you create one, and that's how you delete one. All the tags, everything will be deleted. Yes. By default, every resource that is sitting here, even that will get deleted.
Is there any option to download it as a template?
Just come back to your question. Is there any option to download this as a template? Very good
Yes.
question. That's where Terraform and ARM templates come into picture. Terraform, ARM are called configuration management. It will allow you to download resource groups and everything in the form of a template, so that just in case it gets deleted, you can redeploy it from that particular template. So that's where automation, as let's say, automation, let's say, as a primary concern comes into picture. So we'll talk about that in automation. Yes, you had a question offline. Sorry. No, this doesn't have a grace period. It's an irreversible process. If you delete it, it's gone. You cannot again, retrieve it back again. So we take very, let's say, minute care of people not accidentally deleting this out. You cannot do that. As a can do it. Contributor can still go ahead and delete my resource groups. Contributor, yes, can still go ahead delete. Then how do I protect it? By using something called locks. We'll talk about that. Resource locks and all these things. We'll talk about that. Yes, any more questions, guys? Template, see, again, using a template, you cannot recover something. You can deploy something. You can create something. So if you have data, that data is lost, you cannot retrieve it until and unless you have the data backed up somewhere else. So templates are infrastructure. This is all infrastructure that I'm creating. And if this gets deleted, I can use a template to again redeploy it. So that's the concept of a template as such. Mhm. We'll talk about that when we come to Terraform or ARM and etc. We'll see what is Terraform, what is ARM. We'll have to go inside the topic to kind of. Yes. Any more questions, guys? Anyone online, offline? Any questions here? Proximity is another word for distance. Distance is nothing but proximity, meaning the distance between you, your business, and your client. Okay. Any questions, guys? Anyone? Any questions? Can also we'll arrange some mic or something like that, some speakers or something like that in the background, because that will help you to kind of follow this out. Because this is my third hour that I'm delivering, so even my voice is very low right now. So I'll arrange some mic or something in the back so that you'll be able to, let's say, follow it out. Okay, guys. Thank you. Then that's it from my end. Thank you, and we'll meet tomorrow. Yeah. I'll just stop this.